Hello, my name is Peyton Bowen, and I'm a recently graduated Girl Scout from Orange County who is currently attending the University of North Texas studying Human Development and Family Science. I'm also a Gold Award recipient. My Gold Award project was completed in February 2022 with the goal of helping elementary school teachers support neurodivergent students. And today, I'd like to share with you about how Girl Scout troop leaders can best support neurodivergent Girl Scouts. This topic is very important to me as an autistic person who grew up in Girl Scouts, so I would like to thank Maria Alderete and Noel Hales for reaching out to me to provide a first-hand perspective on how inclusion can and should be implemented for neurodivergent Girl Scouts. So the first question I would imagine is on many minds is, what exactly is neurodiversity? And that's a valid question. It's not as mainstream of a concept yet as it should eventually be. The word neurodiversity was coined by a sociologist named Judy Singer in the late 1990s, and different iterations of the term, such as neurodivergent, were coined by a multiply neurodivergent person of color named Kasayan Asasumasu. Oxford Dictionary defines neurodiversity as the range of differences in individual brain function and behavioral traits, regarded as part of normal variation in the human population, used especially in the context of autistic spectrum disorders. Something notable in this definition is that instead of focusing on the label autistic in the main portion of the definition, this part is mentioned in parentheses, and this is significant for two reasons. One, neurodiversity is an umbrella term that is not limited to autism, and two, people can be neurodivergent and not be diagnosed with a neurodivergency, and we'll get into why that occurs later. Being neurodivergent, for the most part, means needing a slightly different sensory and social environment than that of their peers. However, many of the required changes to accommodate for this are not difficult to make in a setting in which the majority of individuals are neurotypical. Regardless of how many or few support needs a neurodivergent person has, they are always worthy of respect and should be protected from bullying and other socially hostile environments just as much as, if not more so than, their neurotypical peers. Neurodiversity, as previously stated, is a non-medical umbrella term for many different neurological conditions. The symbol for neurodiversity, as shown on the right, is a rainbow infinity symbol. The most commonly associated conditions with neurodiversity are autism, which is best represented by the gold infinity symbol, and ADHD, which is best represented by the butterfly symbol shown here. However, neurodiversity is nowhere near limited to these two diagnoses. Other neurodivergencies include borderline personality and multiple personality disorders, PTSD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, sensory processing disorder, and tic disorders such as Tourette's syndrome. Essentially, a neurodivergent person is one who thinks, learns, behaves, communicates, or processes information differently than a typical person would. The issue is, people who are different oftentimes are not accepted or treated fairly in social environments. And this is especially true in the context of children and teens, which brings us to our next question to unpack. Why is neurodiversity acceptance in particular so important, both in general and in the context of a Girl Scout troop? Well, neurodivergent people aren't guaranteed acceptance in their schools. When surveying autistic students specifically, Janina Breed and Anna Remington found that 23% of them experienced recurrent exclusion in schools. Sounds about right. The same survey, conducted with students who are neurotypical, found that only 4% of them experienced recurrent exclusion. I believe that this unfortunate statistic speaks for itself. Additionally, many parents are ill-informed on neurodiversity, which can cause parents to unintentionally create hostile home environments when a child is neurodivergent. While I was beginning my Girl Scout Gold Award project, I conducted a survey to gather information about the depth of the issue I was addressing. The survey was sent out to general education elementary and middle school teachers, and in one of the responses I received, a teacher stated this more perfectly than I ever could have. They said, "The issue seems to lie greater with the parents than the students. The parents did not want to believe that their kids were broken." This statistic above, that 55% of parents of neurodivergent children have difficulty convincing the other parent that the child is neurodivergent, describes a situation in which one parent is educated and supportive and the other is not. The second parent in this scenario is likely in such a mindset due to the harmful and incorrect stigmas surrounding neurodiversity. However, It is also completely possible for a neurodivergent child to be born into a family where both parents are impacted by misinformation and stigmas, causing neither parent to be well equipped to provide an emotionally comfortable environment at home for their neurodivergent child. I personally know multiple people in this circumstance. Whether or not a child has positive school and home environments, their Girl Scout troop should always be a safe space for them. This is directly supported in the Girl Scout law, which commands Girl Scouts to be considerate and caring, respectful of themselves and others, and to be sisters to all their Girl Scout peers. Let's examine that further. Considerate and caring. Well, considerate means avoiding inconveniencing or hurting others. Caring means displaying kindness and concern for others' well-being. So not only is the Girl Scout law in this statement strictly anti-bullying, it also requires Girl Scouts to be actively loving towards their peers. Moving on to respect myself and others. Judgment and respect don't go hand in hand. Respect is best facilitated with open communication, whereas judgment often comes from preconceived notions and stigmas. And finally, be a sister to every Girl Scout. This does not say, be a sister to your Girl Scout friends, or be a sister to the Girl Scouts you understand. It says every Girl Scout. Despite the clarity of the Girl Scout law, I have personally seen it broken many times. Now let's address the most important question. How can troop leaders cultivate neurodiversity acceptance within their Girl Scout troops? Well, first, how can troop leaders be accepting of neurodivergent Girl Scouts? The Girl Scouts can't be taught how to be accepting of their neurodivergent peers unless the person teaching them is accepting. The most important thing is that troop leaders presume competence. Girl Scout troop leaders have a responsibility to create a productive and safe environment for all troop members. Every girl who has signed up to be a Girl Scout is capable of participating in Girl Scouts. Therefore, the troop leaders should evaluate the individual accessibility needs of each of their troop members and refrain from making assumptions. Any major accommodation needs will most likely be expressed by the parent of the Girl Scout. A huge way troop leaders can be accepting of neurodivergent Girl Scouts is to avoid suppressing behaviors which are not inherently negative in the troop meeting. These behaviors include fidgeting, avoiding sensory input or physical touch, and special interests or hyperfixations, which are deep enjoyments of specific subjects. I will now read a story shared by the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network about the dangers of suppressing stimming, which is a common autistic behavior. Stimming, or repetitive movements that many autistic people use to calm down or focus, should not be suppressed if there is no physical harm to others. Alex grew up with teachers who would force him to keep his hands still and stop rocking and pacing. As a replacement stim, he started biting the inside of his cheek at school to the point that it would start bleeding. He also developed tremors in his hands because he knew that if he flapped his hands, he would be punished and other students would make fun of him. In order to facilitate an accepting environment, Girl Scout troop leaders should not suppress any neurodivergent behaviors unless absolutely necessary. Now, how can troop leaders pass on acceptance to the troop members? How can they facilitate neurodiversity acceptance within their troops? From some careful consideration, I have identified 4 ways in which leaders can do so: call out, discuss, exemplify, and check in. Call out. When bullying or mistreatment occurs, troop leaders should address it. When faced with a situation like bullying, Girl Scout troop leaders should be able to have healthy and private discussions with individual troop members about the inappropriate behaviors they may have displayed towards other troop members. This is a respectful and effective way to prevent further offenses. Of course, there may be situations in which a second conversation needs to happen, or when a parent needs to be informed of the way their child is treating another troop member, but just one simple private conversation can often make a huge difference in the social dynamic of a troop. Discuss. Teach the girls that it's beautiful to be different. One way this can be done is through Girl Scout journeys. Many Girl Scout journeys can help Girl Scouts understand the importance of individuality and uniqueness. These include, but are not limited to, Welcome to the Daisy Flower Garden, Brownie Quest, Agent of Change for juniors, A Maze for cadets, Mission Sisterhood for seniors, and Your Voice, Your World for ambassadors. Exemplify. Lead by example by speaking and acting kindly. On top of the talking points from earlier about how troop leaders can be accepting, troop leaders should not talk badly about a Girl Scout while any other Girl Scout is in the room. This includes facial expressions or annoyed remarks. For some, this may seem obvious. Regardless, this may need to be said. It is so important to lead by example. And finally, check in. Ask neurodivergent Girl Scouts how they're doing. Privately, troop leaders can ask neurodivergent troop members how they're being treated by other troop members, as well as how troop meetings could become a more comfortable environment for them. These simple interactions can end up being so crucial. To summarize, let's simplify the answers to the three main questions discussed in this presentation. First, neurodiversity is a range of differences in brain function and behavior, including but not limited to autism, ADHD, dyslexia, sensory processing disorder, and tic disorders. Second, acceptance is important because every person deserves a safe space, and the Girl Scout law supports the assertion that Girl Scout troops should be safe spaces. Third and finally, troops can support neurodivergent Girl Scouts by being accepting of neurodivergent behaviors and embracing individuality. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation on supporting neurodivergent Girl Scouts.